Welcome to Sisterhood Sessions.
Join us on the couch every Thursday to talk about love, dating, happiness, and everything in between
From a Gen Z
and a millennial perspective.
We are your internet sisters, and we're all about entertaining, motivating, and inspiring you.
Now let's get into it. So, you've broken up with your partner. What's next? Today we're going to talk about how best to deal with a breakup.
Or how, because if you've watched our earlier episodes, our origin story is we kind of met after both getting over a breakup. So our experience with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has to do with taking stock of what happened over the course of your relationship, refocusing your view,
Your goals,
refining your search terms, quote unquote, and getting comfortable with being alone.
Alrighty. So, taking stock. What was wrong in your last relationship? Because you had to kind of analyze.
I did.
The whole thing. I feel like we all go through that. The relationship ends and you just have a play-by-play of everything in your head. What went wrong? What went right? What did you learn? What did you take away? What was your fault? What was their fault? You run through everything.
You totally do. And it's a process that can take, for some, a couple days, a couple months, sometimes even years, depending how impactful the relationship was, how long the relationship was, how meaningful it was. There's no sort of recipe or script or whatever. It's, up to the individual as well. I am a serial relationshipist, monogamist, person who jumps from relationship to relationship. And frankly speaking, I've never done this until this past relationship.
Which is so crazy.
It's so crazy.
This is the longest she's been single.
It's the longest I've been single, a year and a month. And that's the longest I've ever been single since I was 17 years old.
That's crazy.
It is.
You're not the only one out there like that.
No, absolutely not. It's so easy to jump from one relationship to the... Sorry, stop. That's not nice. But it is so easy to jump from one relationship to the next and kind of ignore and make a point not to think about what went wrong. Mm-hmm. And so this particular time, I was in a relationship for 5 years. The relationship began when I was in my mid-20s, and it ended when I was in my early 30s.
That's bizarre.
It's so bizarre to think about because those years are...
You change so much.
So much. And I guess you get to a point in your early 30s where the question is, do you get married or do you break up?
Yeah, you're at that point, especially 5 years in, there's really no other option.
You can't just
keep going and be at a standstill.
There's no time to waste. Mm-hmm. And that's a scary thought as well. I was speaking to my grandmother this morning. She calls me every Monday, and she goes, "So, how's your love life?" And she always asks this. She's like, "Any dates you've been on?" She calls them amoureux because she speaks French to me. She's like, "Any amoureux I need to know about? Lovers, in other words?" And I'm like, "No. Nothing to report." And she's like, "That's okay. We accept you with or without." And I'm like, "Thanks." But yeah, nothing on the horizon for me. But again, this year and a month has given me immense opportunity to take stock of not only what I've learned about what I need in a partner, but also look internally at who I become when I'm in a relationship, and what I feel needs to be like actioned, needs to be worked on. So like I mentioned, you know, in your mid-20s, you can still sort of like date for fun, right? And that's exactly where I was mentally when I met my ex-partner. You know, we were living in a little Australian surf town and we were going out a lot, and, you know, it was all about just having fun. And then I woke up and I was 31 and I was like, oh my gosh, you know, like I feel as though I've grown up and grown out of that phase. But my partner really stayed somewhat stagnant. He was making so many efforts to be better, but I felt like those efforts were purely for me and not for himself. And it just became clear that I really wanted to get married. And the hard thing as well was like, I thought I didn't want kids. And then I realized one day that I did. And the entire relationship was based on us agreeing that like we didn't. And so that was the catalyst. And I had to come to terms with all of that. And it was a really, really difficult thing to do. And I learned a lot from that experience. I really did.
And now whatever your next venture is, you have your goals more prioritized and set straight.
Absolutely. What about you?
I have been in 2 relationships in my lifetime. I'm only 21, so not a lot of life. But I came out of my first relationship, which I was in throughout my later years of high school. And it wasn't great. It wasn't, but I was a child. I was a minor. I was a high school student. I realized like all these issues that were wrong, all these things that I wanted and wouldn't settle for in my next relationship. I thought I had these boundaries put up. And then I got into my last relationship. And the amount of stuff I put up with was not okay, to be honest. I realized that, you know, I had soft boundaries. I didn't actually have them set. I gave way too much wiggle room when I shouldn't have. I learned, you know, if someone tells you who they are, both verbally and with their actions, believe them. Believe them.
Yes.
So I learned a little bit about myself in that. Like I honestly was a pushover when it would come to relationships. And I can't even like blame my partner, but I would let stuff slide when I should have put my foot down and walked away. And I would also have quite a bit of jealousy. But I was also never with partners I fully trusted or would even give me reasons to trust them, which is the hard part. If, you know, I wouldn't get my basic needs met. I would not get the bare minimum. And that was my issue. I was settling for that when I shouldn't have been. I lowered my standards. And that's where I messed up on my end. I can't even fully blame them. I lowered the stick on my end. So, you know, I'm not going to...
I don't agree with that.
Well, I'm not going to, you know, talk down on them as who they are as people, because I don't think they're bad people, but they were not good partners to me.
No, they weren't.
And I deserved better. And now that I have, you know, I really took those relationships as a learning lesson to know what to seek and what not to going forward. And I have, you know, being 21 years old, I'm way clearer on my boundaries and keeping them set than I was when I was 19 years old, just like 2 years ago, going into a relationship. Because you change so much.
You really do. You change so
like who I was
much.
a year ago and 2 years ago and 5 years ago is so different from who I am today. Like, and you don't feel like you're going to be that much of a different person between being like 18, 19 and in your early 20s, but you can change.
Wait till you get to your 30s, girl.
No, I know. But I've changed so much. And so, you know, at the end of the day, I am grateful because I learned so much. And I learned what to not put up with.
Yeah, good for you. I wish I'd learned that lesson sooner, frankly. I really did.
I honestly am grateful that I've learned it at my younger age, because I know it takes a lot of people way longer. Some people don't even like learn that at all.
No. Well, it's a really difficult lesson to go through. And as much as sometimes you feel like you've learned a lesson, you can still fall into those same traps.
Which is what it is in my last relationship.
And I did it over and over and over again too. You know, it takes time sometimes for it to sink in, and there's a lot more that goes into it than learning the lesson and being aware of it. It has to do with all sorts of things, like building your confidence. Go watch our confidence episode.
Yeah, and then building your independence.
Absolutely. So after taking stock and kind of figuring out, you know, what went wrong, what you could have done better, what your partner could have done better, putting all that aside, the next step is really like refocusing. You're out of the relationship now. How do you refocus your life, you know?
Well, you have to realize, like, what did you sacrifice being in that relationship? And you will realize that while taking stock of the relationship, like, you probably had goals, ambitions that you put aside for your partner. If you didn't, great. That's what we're looking for in our future partners. But a lot of the times you put stuff on hold or push it to the side. And so it's a matter of when you're out of that relationship, you know, what do you need to refocus on? For me, I really wanted to rebuild and reconnect with my friends. Because whenever I'm in a relationship, I end up letting that take over my life or take up like all my free time. Where if I'm not at work, I'm with my partner. And that's not healthy. You need a sense of independence, even while in a relationship, to keep it as healthy as it can be. So I was having to reconnect and rebuild my friendships, one thing I'm glad about is in my most recent relationship, I still very much kept my friendships, you know, up in there, unlike I did in my first relationship, but I still pushed them to the side a bit more than I should have. So it was a matter of like making new friends, because I was at a newer job where so many people came in for the summer, and I had, you know, the option to make all these friends and make all these great connections. And so, you know, I really took advantage of that. Like I made all these beautiful friends. And I also had to realize, what did I want to do with my life in general? Like my creative focuses. I've always been a creative person. I wanted to get that sorted. So it was a matter of letting this come to life over the course of a little bit, which we've also talked about, you know, in our last episode. If you want to listen. But so, yeah, I feel like being 21, those were kind of like my biggest things I needed to figure out, like rebuild my friendships, because ultimately that's what makes you in your 20s, the people you surround yourself
100%.
with. And then also, traveling was always a goal of mine. We're going to Australia in like 90 days. My first overseas trip. Ain't that crazy?
So exciting.
But just like putting these goals that I've had in my head into my reality. What have you done to refocus?
Oh, so I should start by saying that my move to Canada was prompted by this relationship that I was in, this most recent relationship. I uprooted my life, left my job, packed up my dog and 2 suitcases, and moved to Canada.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Only 2 suitcases for you?
I know. It was brutal. I'm still recovering from that. But in any case, you know, anytime you move to a new country, it's a huge adjustment. And because I moved in order to continue being in a relationship with my partner, we'd been in a relationship for a year before that in Australia where we met. I made a point of trying to, you know, become a part of his friend group. And then you never want to depend on another person for your happiness. And that's the trap that I fell into. It was very much the narrative of, I moved here for you, you know, you should be trying to make me happy, and that's not how it works. And that's a red flag that I noticed in myself, and it was very much an important lesson that I really should always be focused on making myself happy. That's not anybody else's job. But in any case, I eventually got a job and got settled in, but I made a couple of friends here and there, but I was really bad at maintaining friendships, and I ended up feeling really isolated, really lost, and particularly during COVID. I was away from my entire family. I really didn't have a strong social group. And so my immediate mission upon kind of embarking into my newly solo life was to build up from scratch a social circle. And I put a lot of my energy and time into that, into learning how to be a good friend, and how to connect with people and how to maintain those friendships. That was a massive, massive goal of mine. And then the other goal was I'd kind of fallen into a rut, and my thought process was, I'm 31, I'm old. And nothing could be further from the truth. Mm-hmm. You're not old in your 30s at all. And so it was about having fun. And it was about reconnecting with my youthful spirit, and just letting loose. And it was awesome. It was so rejuvenating.
We had a hot girl summer.
We had a hot girl summer. We did.
As we deserved.
We deserved that. We really did. And then the final thing was your mentality has to shift from how can I get these two people, myself and my partner, to where I want to be, and now it's just me. Where do I want to go? Mm-hmm. What do I want? What are my goals? Because I totally lost track of that. And so that was a total mental shift that I needed to go through. And that's really how I refocused.
Yeah. Figuring out what we want in life. Mm-hmm. Without a partner. It's the best way to go about it. Who needs a man?
I mean, preach, sister. But it's nice to have one.
It is.
But you don't need one.
Ooh, there's a quote from Cher. Oh my God. It's like, I don't need a man. But I think it's she was comparing men to dessert.
Ooh.
You enjoy them, but you don't need it.
Ooh, I like that.
I'm way paraphrasing there, but a little summary.
A mini summary. Go look up Cher quotes on Google.
It was big on TikTok a year ago, 2 years ago.
Speaking of Google, the next step is refining your search terms. That was such a good segue. I'm happy with that.
That was actually quite clever. I was speaking of Google, and then, yeah. Yep. Okay. I like that.
So your search terms, your search criteria, right? Because once you've gone through your taking stock and you're refocusing, you may sort of now realize, looking back, that who you were with is not who you were looking to be with. Mm-hmm. I have this issue where I see people for their potential rather than who they actually are.
Listen to In My Head by Ariana Grande.
Mm-hmm. I don't know that song. But
I'm going to have to put you on because,
okay.
Does that ever hit?
Okay. But in any case, it's it's that whole concept of if he wanted to, he would, and so my search criteria after each relationship changes and evolves according to what my previous partners did well and where they were lacking, mm-hmm. right? And so your little list kind of continues growing and changing. And so what's on your list?
I mean, being in relationships, I always had the idea, since my ultimate end goal, I hate the word end goal, but like one day I want to settle down and get married and have kids. I've said this before. But, so going into these relationships, I don't want to say I had the idea of marriage on my mind, but I was like, I don't want to think about an end date. So I'm like, if I'm with this partner, I'm just going to naturally assume it's going to go all the way. And like now, like in my last relationship, I couldn't think about like the idea of marriage, like right, no. I'm 21 years old.
Yeah.
I'm at a point where like I don't care. I want marriage someday, but like that's not my focus right now. And I've really realized the ultimate thing I'm going to look for if I let a new relationship enter my life, because I don't need one right now. I'm becoming so comfortable with being independent, and I just feel so busy and occupied that I honestly, frankly, don't even feel like I have time to introduce a partner into my life. And also, I don't feel like I need one in the slightest. I'm very fulfilled. So if I were to by any chance let a man into my life, the ultimate thing is I want to be chasing happiness. So I want to have that relationship bring me a sense of happiness. Like I'm not settling. I want to genuinely be the happiest I've ever felt if I'm going to let another man into my life. But going a little bit deeper than that, I've been able to like narrow down through my past relationships, as you said, the wants and don't wants in my next relationship. Like I want someone who also wants to get married and have kids. I want someone that makes me laugh all the time. I want someone that's nurturing, that's patient, that's caring, that learns my love languages and, you know, tries to give them, like, goes out of their way to make sure I feel loved through my love languages.
Huge one.
Or will at least have aligning ones with me. But if they don't, we'll make the effort to make me feel loved. And I could go on a list of what I won't put up with again. But that's for another day, if at all. But I've learned that my goal right now at 21 years old is just chasing my happiness.
Yeah.
Whether that involves a relationship or not, happiness is what I'm looking for.
As really as it should be at your age. That's all that matters. Have beautiful little love stories. Whether they last a long time or not doesn't matter. But
just meet people.
Enjoy. Fall in love. Be happy.
Meet Australian men in a couple months.
Ooh, did you hear that? Australian men.
Australian men.
Australian men.
I'm single.
Hello.
I'll meet, whoever.
Are you into mullets?
Depends.
Depends on the mullet. You heard it here first.
Do a lot of Australian men have mullets?
Yes.
I'm scared. It really depends on the man. Not everyone can pull it off.
Yeah, I mean...
Some people try, but they don't succeed. But, yeah, it's just meeting people. I've met some pretty cool people and some pretty cool dudes.
You have met some pretty cool people.
I've met some pretty cool men as well.
Some very cool men.
So...
My search terms, oh my God, so different than when I was your age, right? And I feel like it's funny because the older I get, the more demanding my search terms become. And this is awful to say. I don't believe this, but unfortunately, it may be a little bit true, and I'm maybe just a little delulu about it.
Delulu.
But the older I get, also the less interested men are in me, and yet my standards are higher.
During our hot girl summer, there were plenty men into her, so quiet with that one.
Okay, well, I don't want to believe it, but so.
No, there's proof in the pudding, babes. We could ask anyone we went out with during that time. Oh my God. The amount of men that were my age and going after her kind of hurt a little bit. I'm like, you're really shooting up there. Like, okay. But no, but they just thought, they did not believe you were in your 30s. They did not believe you were in your 30s.
Well, it doesn't matter. In any case, I guess my search terms my list definitely now includes somebody who wants to get married and somebody who wants kids. It's really important for me to meet somebody who is able to balance their emotions. Somebody who's worldly, who loves to travel, who's cultured, somebody sensitive, somebody ambitious, somebody who wants to grow at the same pace that I'm growing. I think that's the secret.
And wants to grow with you.
Yeah, that's the secret. And somebody who identifies as a feminist.
That's important.
Very important to me. Very, very
Listen
important
up,
to me.
men.
Listen up.
Be
men.
feminists.
That's
You
true.
don't got a chance. Either of us. That's important.
It is very important.
It's very important.
Yeah. That being said, you know, we do all of these things and we have our lists, but, you know, we're still single. So I think a really important component to, you know, getting through that post-breakup stage is getting comfortable being alone.
I also feel like when you are the happiest and most content being with yourself, being by yourself, that you know, end up attracting the right person. It's whatever you want in your partner, be that for yourself, and then the perfect partner will come.
That's absolutely right.
Many different variations of that phrase, of that quote.
Yeah.
But it's true. And then in that process, you become just very happy being by yourself. And then you don't need a man. So you don't allow anything less than what your standards are.
That's
you
so
don't need
true.
one.
And I can't believe I'm only just discovering this at my age. It feels like something I should have learned when I was your age. And I'm so impressed with your maturity. It's insane to me that, you know, you're 11 years younger and you're already having these thoughts. And, you know, it's amazing to see. And I'm really proud of you for that because you know your worth and you're standing up for yourself and you know what you deserve. And that's massive.
I mean, I also have to just think, you know, this new technological era we're in, because I just feel like the internet and social media, you know, there's many negative sides to it, but ultimately we get so many posts that we see on our feeds telling us about, you know, our self-worth, realizing that, you know, things we should deserve, what red flags and green flags are. I feel like that just became such a huge thing with the internet that we realized that these were common pros and cons to people that we gotta look out for.
Absolutely.
So I gotta thank my, you know, this new social media generation, because ultimately I don't think I would be as self-aware without it.
I think that plays a massive part. I did not have this information available to me, you know, and honestly, sometimes it's easier hearing those sorts of things from a stranger, because that's not to say that my friends didn't speak to me about it or my mother didn't speak to me about it. But it's hard to hear from the people you love, and sometimes it takes a stranger telling you a hard truth. And even if that's like through TikTok or whatever, like, or an Instagram reel or whatever it is, that lands. Sometimes it really lands more than it does when it's coming from somebody you love.
You also just feel like there's biases when it's coming from someone you love. You're like, well, you don't fully know, you don't fully realize, you're just saying that because maybe you don't like this person. Who knows what's the reason? But when you have, a stranger on TikTok telling you, does your partner have, you know, A, B, C, E traits?
Wow, you're really good at the alphabet.
I forgot. No.
That's the most important part.
I was going to try and save myself. We already know they have trait D.
Oh my god. Oh,
I can count to 10. In Spanish too. There we go.
good for you.
At least I have that going for me. If I can't do the alphabet. I'm embarrassing myself on this podcast.
No, you're not. You're so
I'm
cute.
funny. I'm creating good TikTok reels, guys.
TikTok reels.
I'm combining them because it's going to both platforms.
There you go.
I'm not dumb.
Smart.
Yeah.
Very smart.
Anyway.
Big brain energy.
I have smarticle particles, as London Tipton once said.
Who?
It's after your time. Anyway.
I try so hard to be relevant, but sometimes it slips through the fingers.
Anyway.
Being alone. One thing I love about becoming comfortable being on my own is that I get to make decisions without taking anybody else into consideration.
Except your dog.
Other than Miss Bill. But little Billy is my number one girl, and she'll forever be a priority. But other than that, the freedom that comes along with making decisions about your life when you don't have to include anybody else's opinions or desires or needs into it. Oh my God. It's so nice.
You could move to a new country tomorrow. It wouldn't even matter.
I could.
Just quit your job. Doesn't matter about your partner because you don't have one. But seriously, like the freedom that comes with that.
Yeah.
It's so liberating.
It's super liberating.
You can do literally whatever you want, and there's practically nothing holding you back.
Absolutely not. Yeah. It's really, really nice. Another thing that I really love about being on my own is that I have the space and the time and the solitude to work on being my best self. Mm-hmm. Like being alone and having your own space and not having anybody else around really gives you the freedom to be super introspective and to, you know, just meditate on what you want out of your life on your own. Like, and
just realize who you are down at your core. Because
it's so healing.
When your personality meshes with another human, you can lose a bit of yourself in that.
You totally can.
Or a lot of yourself.
You absolutely can.
So just being able to sit and realize like who you are at your core, once again, like refocus, figure out what you want in life. Like there's so many benefits to being single and being alone.
There really
it's for
are.
a short or long period of time.
I was talking to my mom the other day, and you know, we always have these conversations about how I'm growing and how I'm learning. And I mentioned to her that, you know, I feel as though my entire life I've been codependent. And I've just been, you know, sort of so attached to the idea that I had to have a partner. And she goes, hallelujah. Like, she didn't use that word, but she goes, yes, finally. Like, you're realizing that. You're coming to that realization that, yes, you have been codependent for so long. And it's so nice to see you spread your wings and be on your own and do things on your own terms. And like the sense of accomplishment, it sounds like I'm from the 1920s when I'm going to say this, but from like, you know, figuring out my own finances, you know, and setting myself like financial goals, career goals, all of these different things that I want purely for me. It's so nice. Mm-hmm. It's really nice.
It's also crazy how much you need to experience things yourself to actually learn and have things land as well. Because your mother could tell you you're codependent 5 years ago, but you're just...
I didn't want to hear it. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to hear it.
Mm-hmm. And I've even seen it in like numerous friends or people I know in my circle. I'm like, there's so much you have yet to learn, but you can't let anyone else tell you. Like there's so much you just have to learn yourself through experience.
Totally.
And it'll hit the hardest. It'll end up being the most valuable.
And we're all ready at different times, you know, to learn these things about ourselves. You know, there's no timeline for anybody to follow. We all come to terms with things on our journeys through different experiences and on different timelines, and that's totally okay. And I'm okay with learning it now, and I'm glad that I'm learning it at all. Mm-hmm. And the beautiful thing about, you know, leaving relationships and getting to undergo this sort of cathartic process of getting back to who you are at your core, is that if you have a desire to eventually repartner, having taken that time, it prepares you so much better to then be a better partner to your future partner, and also to be better to yourself when you do enter into that new partnership.
Well, yeah, when you are so content with yourself, once again, you don't let stuff slide. So your partner will have to meet your high standards, which you are allowed to have. Your standards can be through the roof. You're allowed to have them. So if you're not, if you're content with your life, you won't let anyone else in that doesn't match your standards. And that'll be way better for you in the long run. It'll be healthier for you, better for your partner. If you're more independent, that's the best you can ask for when going into a relationship. You need your sense of independence everywhere in life. Don't lose it.
Where is it? Oh, it's there. Sorry, that was so bad. That was so embarrassing.
It really was bad. We're embarrassing ourselves this episode.
We are, but you know what?
I feel like there's so much more we could say. I feel like we can go in another time and just talk about how great being single is.
We'll do that. Let's do that. Let's do an episode.
It's so underrated.
Let's do an episode on how it's awesome being single.
It is. Everyone romanticizes being in a relationship. They're like, oh, I want a boyfriend. I want a girlfriend.
Let's romanticize being single.
There we go.
I love it.
Let's do it. That's our goal.
Let us know, I guess, in the comments if you've resonated with any of this. If you're going through a breakup right now and, what's sort of helping you get through it.
That'd be cool. Is it ice cream? Because that's okay.
Ice cream helps.
It's okay to wallow. I learned that from Gilmore Girls.
Gilmore Girls. Such a good show.
It really is.
Yeah, wallow. Do all the things that you need to do. But at the end of the day, it's just...
It's for the better.
It really is. It really is. If you're not meant to be in something, then, just know that there's always something better on the horizon. There really is.
And don't go back to your ex.
Don't do it.
Very, very few exceptions to that rule.
Very few.
Very few.
But delete the number.
Don't go back. If it's meant to
Don't
be,
do it.
you will bump into each other in some random city on the other side of the world in a few years' time. And then maybe you can consider going again. But only under that exception.
Depending on how much work either of you have done.
That's true.
But in any case, you deserve it for yourself, right? You deserve to do the work for yourself. Not for anybody else, but just for you.
Learning how to do things for you is the most important thing. Most valuable.
It really is.
Yeah.
It is.
All right.
On that note, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate your input, so feel free to reach out to us with any feedback, comments, or suggestions for future episodes.
If you would like to support us, please be sure to leave us a rating and review on your favorite platform and subscribe so you never miss us.
See you next week.
Toodles.
Oh wait, am I doing the Gen Z heart?
Well, this one just looks more rounded. I feel like this one looks more like an action. No. Ring finger, middle finger. Okay, let's see if I do it. See, it doesn't. There we go.
You got it? Okay. Bye.
Bye.